So I will give an introduction just for a few minutes, and then we'll hear from Jay from Microsoft, who's working with David and Jonathan at CBC Radio Canada, talking about their implementation of C2PA at CBC. And then Nigel and Charlie will be talking about what BBC's been doing around implementing C2PA, and then Gavin and Pia, mostly Gavin, I think, but maybe Pia will be joining in for questions, will be talking about the Content Authenticity Initiative and also the Adobe implementations, because they sort of wear two hats. They work for both Content Authenticity Initiative and Adobe. So I'm sure they will give you more information on their approach later on. But just for those who haven't heard of C2PA or have forgotten since last meeting, I'll give a few really quick words on introduction, because we do have a lot to cover in the next 45 minutes. So the general idea of these technologies, C2PA in particular, is rather than trying to detect deep fake images and videos, we figured that is going to end up as an arms race, which is going to be impossible to win. It'll be like viruses and antivirus software. There is a place in the world for antivirus software, obviously, and a lot of us need it. And so there'll probably be something to detect deep fakes, but we also want to approach things from the other direction and to be able to prove what is at least where the source is of content. So we really want to make sure that content being published by reputable publishers can be viewed as such, and people can trust what they see. So the key term behind that is digital provenance, and that's a term that comes up a lot. So we can't really prove that something is true, but we can show the provenance chain, the way that the workflow by which content was created, and all of the actors and tools that were used in the creation of content, ideally from the lens, from the glass to glass, so from the original capture device through to the user viewing it. That's the ideal situation. So we really want to have the goal of making it simple for the creators, the photographers and videographers, to be able to capture information along with capturing the actual image or the actual video, and on the other end, to make it easy for viewers to be able to see that provenance information. So there are three organizations that have a strong relationship that are working on this. So two that are working sort of on the requirements side, a group called Content Authenticity Initiative, which Pia and Gavin represent, and so you'll be hearing from them later. And there's another group called Project Origin, which BBC and CBC are members of, and IPTC is soon to join. So we've been working with them on looking at the same issue, but from a particular news media viewpoint. So Content Authenticity Initiative is looking across all industries. Project Origin is trying to focus just on workflows for news, and there's some particular needs around that. And so the two organizations got together and created a third organization to actually write the technical standard that implements those requirements. So you can see the relationship like this. So the CAI and Project Origin contribute the requirements and use cases, and the C2PA, Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, creates the technical standard that then implements those requirements. So there's a bunch of terminology that comes around these things. So claims are the groups of assertions that are made around whatever it is that the creator wants to say. So the location where an image was created, the name and the publisher information around the creator, the people depicted, products depicted. The idea is that any IPTC photo metadata property, or as of version 1.2 video metadata property, can be asserted in a C2PA manifest, a group of assertions, and then signed digitally using a cryptographic certificate that can then make that manifest tamper evident. We say there's nothing we can do to stop people from manipulating the bits and bytes to make something appear to say the wrong thing, but what we can do is put a digital signature on that so that the tools can detect that manipulation has happened. So in February of this year, version 1 of the C2PA specification was released, and that laid out the framework for inserting IPTC and schema.org and other assertions into an image file using the same mechanism, roughly the same mechanism that's used for IPTC Photo Metadata as a whole. So embedding as a ISO-based media file format fragment. We can go into more details on that in other sessions, but we're not going to go into the detail around actually how it's embedded in the file, but it is embedded in the file. And then recently, just last week, the version 1.2 of the C2PA specification came out, and that now has support for including IPTC video metadata hub assertions as well as the photo metadata ones. So we can now support other metadata that's particular to videos. So we can even talk about episode structures and the durations of files and various other fields that are specified in the IPTC video metadata hub. So yes, I've got some other slides that we can use later on, but with that, hopefully everyone has a quick idea of what it is that we're talking about now. And so we can move on to our first speaker in this session, Jay from Microsoft. So Jay, are you able to start sharing?
Yes, sorry. Trying to
Great.
get you to zoom in. Give me 1 second. Can you see the screen?
No, not yet. It's starting. Yes, there we go. Great.
All right, wonderful. Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Lee, and I am a product manager working at Microsoft on Azure Media Services. A little bit about me: I'm an Asian woman in her 20s. I'm wearing a black puffer, and I have an office background. But today I'm really excited to tell you a little bit more about what Microsoft is doing in the content provenance space. This is going, there we go. So to give you some background, right now we are specifically focused on provenance in Microsoft Azure. Azure is a global cloud provider operating in 140 countries with over 90 compliance offerings, and we service over 68,000 industry partners and work with 95% of the Fortune 500 companies. So provenance at Microsoft has always been a company-wide investment. The Defending Democracy program, which is part of corporate social responsibility, is finding ways in which we can reduce digital disinformation and protect election integrity. Microsoft Research has also had a long-term commitment to investigating deepfake technologies and prevention methods of detecting deepfakes as well. So they've been key in defining the spec for provenance and the details behind that. So these efforts culminated in our involvement in Project Origin, as well as the C2PA, in which Microsoft is a steering committee member. But at the same time, while we're working on these concepts, we've also been listening to our customers and to understand what they want in terms of combating disinformation. So what we found is that provenance could apply to multiple verticals. News media, that's a given, but there are a lot of other scenarios, such as fraud prevention. Insurance companies want to verify that the claims evidence that they receive from customers is valid. Or enterprise brand protection, where companies want to make sure that the public content that they release hasn't been altered, so that can negatively impact their brand image. And another one is content chain of custody and how to protect that chain. So for example, in court cases, making sure that the video recordings that are used as evidence remain untampered with. And there's a bunch of different areas, but these are ones that I think you may also agree with are pretty important in our lives. So with that, as most of the customer feedback that we have was from the video space, this led us to start building a solution on Azure Media Services. Now, I understand that most of you may come from a photo background, so here's a brief overview of what Azure Media Services does. We are a global cloud service that stores, processes, and also streams video and audio content at scale. And how this works is we take in some form of video, whether that's archival content for video on demand or a live stream. We then encode it, which means we compress and process the video file into a playable format. Then we also help customers distribute it, such as streaming on their own websites or using a content distribution network or CDN to scale their audience. And we also provide different content protection methods too, such as encrypting the content or providing integrations with digital rights management systems that limit content playback on different systems. And this isn't all that we do, but it is a sample of all of our important features. And how Provenance fits into this is in the processing bucket. So you'd be able to sign your content with Provenance and then also take advantage of a lot of other features that Azure Media Services provides. And as Brendan mentioned, all of this information on how to do Provenance, that is all public on the C2PA website. There is a public spec. It's on version 1.2 right now. And so there's not really a secret sauce of Provenance, but it is quite a complex process that requires a lot of infrastructure investment and continuous long-term updates and maintenance. We started with 1.0 January this year. We're already on 1.2. So if you do the math, it's a lot of updates in 1 year. So by using a cloud solution, you can get Provenance, but all the benefits of cloud, including lower cost and easier and speedier deployment, and also less worries on maintenance and keeping up to date with the C2PA spec. So with that, what do we currently have in our system? On the implementation side, we are compliant with the C2PA v1.0 spec, and we're also updating to the most recent 1.2 version. We are also hashing the content manifest. The manifest, that's where all the information about a piece of content is stored. So we are basically transforming that manifest into a different value that can then be verified later on to make sure nothing was changed in the file. We are also integrated with Azure Key Vault. So Key Vault is a service that securely encrypts, stores, and manages all your keys and secrets like passwords. And they also have hardware integration as well, so that's extra safe. Key Vault uses your certificate, which shows that you are a legitimate organization, that you're verified, and they sign this previously hashed manifest with all the important information with this certificate. And this whole process can then be undone on the end user side, where they can validate when they actually view the Provenance content. And we are also in what we call a quote unquote, it's a loose term right now, private preview. Basically, this is a demo with a small group of customers where they try using our application programmer interface or API. So we have the CBC and Radio Canada, which you'll hear from after me, but we also have a company called Ravner. So Ravner is a content management system for government organizations, and Provenance is of interest to governments, understandably, because they don't want the content that they output to the public to be manipulated. And you can see a demo that we have with Ravner in the video on the C2PA's website, c2pa.org. So that's what we currently have and what we're doing. Now I want to talk about what we're planning on doing moving forward. We do have a lot of feature updates that we're planning to update on. So first of all, always keeping up to date with whichever C2PA spec is newly released, that's a given. As our current Provenance system is more of a basic preview version, we're also trying to add in more features that are defined in this spec. So Brendan mentioned like different assertions claims about like whether that's like IPTC related or like what transforms you've done, things like that. And we also want to make this more customer facing. And so that would include adding in an easy to use and also easy to deploy user experience. And finally, the hardest part is how we can educate customers on this and help them understand and use the Provenance system. I mean, from what you saw, it sounds simple enough, but when you actually do it, there's a lot of intricacies there. So we're working on creating a nice set of documentation, educational articles, and also code samples to help along the way. Now, I know this is much more of a high-level overview of what we're planning on doing, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions on how do you do this specifically, what the process is like, all of that. But I'm happy to share more. But if you are interested in learning more about this, or if you would like to preview our current system, please fill out this brief interest form. It's aka.ms/provenance-interest, and I will be in touch. So thanks so much. That's all from me. If you're interested, fill out the form, or you can directly contact me. My email is jiayali@microsoft.com. And I will hand it over to our Canadian friends. We can exit this. Great. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Jay. That was really good. So, David, I think you're going to be sharing.
Yes, I'm there. I can share my screen.
Great, thank you.
Okay, everybody see my screen?
Yes,
Thank you. It's a validation. Hello, everyone. Thank you to invite me to this forum. I followed the other session before. It's really interesting. Maybe this presentation will be a little bit left field because I will talk about picture and movement. All of my presentation is about video. My name is David Beaulieu. I work for CBC Radio Canada. Basically, CBC Radio Canada is the public broadcaster in Canada, like BBC and UK. And today I will talk about the test we does with the Azure C2PA module. Just quickly, I'm a solution broadcast engineer for CBC. I'm a white man with a curly hair and really enthusiastic, and with quite an accent when I speak in English. As you see, I'm based in Montreal, but I work for CBC and Radio Canada. Sorry. The public company have like two network head, one in Montreal and one in Toronto. One in Montreal is in French and the other one is in Toronto. But in my role, I'm work for the both network, basically. We manage around 27 TV station, 88 radio station across Canada. We have 5 specialty television channel and 4 national radio network. We also run 2 OTT platform, more for advertisement, and 2 news website with like more like the BBC News or something like that. We also have presence, and all of our journalists have presence on social media like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we have a lot of projects running on TikTok and Instagram and all the new feed, the new, more younger stuff to reach younger audience. For us, the C2PA, where we want to focus on that presently as a first step for our company is at the if we look at the first, say, the 3 step where we can adding information in C2PA is at the news gathering, when we receive like images or when we took images with our own camera, but we work with AFP or router where we took some images from there at the editing. But for us, we decide to focus on the publishing side. That means where we took the asset is ready and we sending that to another platform like Twitter or our own website. That's the place we focus our POC, basically. We do the test with the Azure Media Services. Basically, the red square on my drawing is the on-prem facility. When the asset is produced, that means after the editing, when it's ready to start, we have a phase where we encoded that asset with multiple bitrate for create a video on demand asset on our website. Basically, all of the blue square is the Azure Media Services part than Jay just explained before. For the moment, is we run with a manual script like the transformation of the asset. We push the asset manually to the cloud. This workflow as a POC is not automated for the moment. Basically, the Azure Media Services, the process do the encryption of the metadata and manage the certificate for seal the information. And we add something that is not C2PA related. We use like a streaming endpoint to create like a VOD link. Jay mentioned it on the presentation also. One of the player we can use to validate if the video asset have correctly include the C2PA manifest is the Ravner player. They have a web page where you can upload our own video link and try to play it on them. I will show you what it look like. Basically, that is one video I uploaded on Azure and is ready to play it. You can see there, if I start the video, you can see there the small eye is in the, that is the implementation the player for the moment. If I click on them, I can see then my video CBC C2PA PUC is signed. But they issue by that is it's me. I need to work more to put the good information at the good place, and is endorsed over AMS Azure Media Services with the prototype. Basically, that is the information then a user can see to validate the provenance of the video. Here we can see all of the chain. The chain is easy because I just take the asset, encode it, and put on a player. But if I have more step than that, as example, if the video come from other sources validated, I can see here the chain of the validation, the chain of the provenance, sorry. If I took another web page, is the same demo page, but I upload another video on them. It's the same video, but without passing over the C2PA process. When I start the video, or almost before, you can see here the small I is in orange, and they will explain to a user, oops, sorry. They will explain to a user then they not have digital signature. The video still play, but the customer at the end can say, maybe this sources is not good. I need to validate. That is the POC we made, and we continue to try to play with it. As example, changing the bit rate, because for creating a VOD asset and streaming it over HTTP live streaming, we want to have multiple bit rate to adapt to the internet. That's the idea. But all of this mechanism look like work. After that, as a solution engineer, I need to try to fit that in my in our own architecture. Basically, the green square, this part, I want to automate that and put that somewhere in our own workflow. It's quite difficult. Sorry for this slide is look like, but I will explain you fastly. You can see on this slide, if you just step back a little bit, you can see two different workflow. One for our news website, the one on the bottom, where is all VOD asset. That means we create a video file with time duration, we encode it, and we encode it after that, and we send that to our platform. The other workflow is the workflow on the blue one on the top, where we provide video for social media. All of this workflow is based on live feed. That is more complex because we not have like the tool presently as a customer to insert the C2PA on a live feed. What we think, and that's where we are today, it's something in evolution. We want to maybe replace the green square we see before on our pipeline there, where all of our asset can be ingest in Azure instead the square of Amazon you see before. That's the workflow we have presently. And after that, staying that to our CDN, Akamai, the content distribution network, and people can consume the video there. The problem with that is a big project with our both digital team in French and English. That's why we look more for do like a subset maybe of our set as the beginning, but that is not started for the moment. But that could be like a midterm solution. The other thing we're thinking is to implement on the live feed if the technology go well and we can have an implementation in live, we can do that. If like Twitter go and chip in more in the development and on the Twitter Media Studio, they can have the ability to add C2PA. That could be another solution, but that is another concern. But basically, it's more like a challenge for the moment to implement that to our workflow, and we don't really have the good solution, quick win. We not find it basically. Our ideal implementation will be at the encoding level on-prem. The amount of video we produce by day, it could be valuable for us to implement ourselves, not implement ourselves, but have like an on-prem solution where all of the asset going out for publishing will be passing over C2PA. That means, Brendan touch base a little bit about that, but that means we need to manage our own certificate at this point. What is the validation of our own certificate over the internet after? That is all of question we still have on the C2PA project. Our next step, basically, as I said, we need to complete our first step architecture implementation. We continue also to testing the impact on our own player and workflow to adding this metadata on our video. We want to automate basically this workflow for production, of course, and we really at the point to socialize the C2PA and your other team like digital team management and to be involved the people. We do the first presentation to the newsroom, English newsroom this week, and we need to doing the same thing on the French side in this. I don't know when, maybe next week also, to be involved the journalists on this kind of mentality, because a good implementation they will take part of to insert the metadata maybe before the editing or at the editing level. And the other point is to start the wheel. Presently, we not put that in production. Even the fact then all of the players supported the small I we see before. We want to start to produce video asset with C2PA. Even people cannot see the result at the end, because the idea is to start the movement, and also in the same idea, adding this requirement to our procurement process to be able then when I buy the next video encoder, I want to have the option to have a C2PA option to add the manifest and etc. That's where we are in Fastly. Brendan told me you just have 10 minutes. I will try to doing that quick. I know it's a lot of information, but if you have questions, feel free, or you want to discuss, feel free to reach me. You have my email there, and I'm still available in both language.
Great, thank you very much, David. That was excellent, and yeah, hopefully it's given everyone an idea that C2PA can actually be implemented in a real newsroom, although there are still many questions to be answered. So on that note, next, Charlie, are you there? And hopefully Nigel as well. Oh yes, Nigel, I can see you there now. So I need to make you a co-host,
yes,
so you can share.
Hear me. So if I can try and start my video. It didn't. Oh, it's there. Excellent, excellent. It wouldn't work 1 second ago. That's great. Thank you very much.
I just turned you on, so to speak.
Excellent.
So,
okay, I'll begin. So
I'm sorry, I have to say, could you please be fairly fast?
Yes.
So we've got 15 minutes to do you and Adobe. And
okay, very quickly then. That's great. So I'm Nigel Earnshaw. I work for BBC R&D. I'm a white, bespectacled, middle-aged man. And I'll just take you very quickly through what we're doing in a practical sense. And then my colleague Charlie we'll talk about the sort of the wider issues of the newsroom. So if I just share very quickly, PowerPoint slideshow for you. So this first one, okay, has that worked?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. Okay, I think I lost you. Right. So yeah. So as I said, this is the BBC. We participate in the technical work in C2PA, both Charlie and I. So our particular mission here was to sort of, as we developed the specification, was first of all to try and understand the specification and scrutinize it technically, so we could feed back and understand what may or may not be working with it. So what we wanted to do is actually create some C2PA compliant content, from scratch, just using Node, JavaScript, and just try and implement these authenticated manifests, which, as you know, are cryptographically authenticated data structures. So we wanted to do this to aid the specification development and test our understanding, and of course make sure that it didn't affect the content. We can still play the files. So this was the first thing we sort of undertook. And it was successful. We managed to produce files which colleagues, partners within C2PA, people like Adobe, TruePrint, Microsoft, all managed to play, and we managed to play their content. So that was the big sort of first effort at trying to implement this thing from scratch. And we ended up with a sort of basic command line tool in JavaScript. So I'm just showing a screenshot here rather than the whole thing, because this is a very sort of technical engineering command line tool. You type, make a manifest, it takes some content, it goes through all of the process of adding assertions, of doing the cryptography, of binding in the content to the manifest, generating the manifest, adding it to the file. So what you see really would just be a lot of text coming by to verify the operations and tell me what the data structures are, so I can actually debug it. But at the end of it, I end up with a file with some C2PA content, and I make sure I can play it. So that, if you like, was the step one that's been achieved. We were quite happy with that, but then we wanted to try and make a second step, which is to try and produce a more user-friendly demonstrator, which was more visual and more kind of looks more like a professional validator. And in fact, what we really wanted to do was produce some libraries that we could build, that we could give to our UX experts, so they could build on it and do some testing with user experience. And we wanted to be able to think about making a tool to generate content and explain to our journalists and our people and our friends in news how this works, what it is conceptually. Show them a range of assertions, these claims that say, that it was produced by the BBC or was produced by some incoming contribution, and explore manifests and just be able to show them around. So we started off just creating these libraries. And so far we can exhibit we can use our libraries to look inside our content. If I just quickly show you another screen, stop sharing and then reshare with my browser so that I can show you, just take you quickly through the browser. So here we have the project origin demonstrator. So I've fed in a file, and the file has been pre-processed with the earlier tool. So we actually have sort of locally generated manifest to go into the file. If I go down, people are not familiar with MPEG-4 formats, ignore all this. These are just the boxes that arrive in the file. And eventually we get to a big box. It's called a jump box. That's a standard. Don't worry about that. So we have a manifest store, and we can explore what's in this part of the file. So of course, the rest of the file has video in it, audio, data samples, but this is just the manifest part that is pulled out and allows me to explore it, look into the assertion store. So for instance, I can see that there's an assertion here, and these have been the actions that have been created by me. So I've put in a CPA to a created action, and when it was published, when it was produced, and that kind of thing. So that's really what we've been trying to do, is build this library now so we can have a more visual, exploratory view of manifests that we create, and ultimately have tools to create and validate manifests so we can sort of evangelize and explain what's going on as we go into news. Which is a good point to hand over to Charlie, because Charlie is a newsroom expert, so he can talk to you about how we might think about incorporating this kind of process into our newsroom. So if I stop sharing, and I think that should be enough. Well, excellent, thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm a white bearded man with very messy hair today. And yeah, just very quickly, just wanted to go over some of the options we think we have in our workflow. So we've sort of decided that social is where we want to concentrate, because social is where we see the biggest opportunity for C2PA and media provenance in general making a difference. Just because when we put things out on our own website, we have things like TLS and certificates to fall back on. And so for us, just similar to David's explanation as well, it's trying to work out where we put our C2PA process. So we think it's probably most likely that we'll start at this end of our diagram, integrating hopefully with the nonlinear video editors that we use, the photo editors that we use to embed C2PA manifests into our workflows. And typically this is where our workflows start when we're putting a package out that's specific to social media, which is generally what we try and do. So when we go to Twitter, we'll cut something specific to Twitter. But what we'd really like to do is, with all of the prototyping work we've done, start embedding stuff further back in our workflow. So as we come back in the workflow into our video asset management systems and image management systems, these are things that in the BBC are built and run by the BBC. And so we've got the opportunity there to customize them, and to start putting C2PA manifests in there so we can get more detail out into at an earlier point. So maybe we can get details about the journalists working on it, things like that. And then eventually we are hoping that we'll start seeing some of our ingest and contribution sources, including C2PA data, so that we can get that real provenance chain that tells us even more about where the content came from. Thank you.
That was great, Charlie. Thank you for being very succinct, and to Nigel as well. So it was very informative, but also very succinct. So now, hopefully we can go a few minutes into the next session, because unfortunately we had one of our panelists drop out due to catching COVID, but we still want to have lots of time for the AI session because it's a really interesting topic, but we do have some great speakers from the Content Authenticity Initiative. So Gavin, would you like to start off, and then Pia will come afterwards, I believe.
Sure. Here I'm going to share. Hopefully you can see that.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm Gavin Peacock. I'm a white male with curly gray hair. And I am a principal scientist at Adobe. I'm working on the Content Authenticity Initiative. And what I wanted to do was give you a really brief overview of what we are doing with open source, so that you're aware of this effort that we've made available to the public. And so our goal is to encourage the rapid adoption of C2PA and help people be informed, and also develop our own applications. So the tools that we're showing you, we have used to develop our own applications. At the core of all of this is a thing we call the C2PA REST SDK. And what that is an open source implementation of a significant part of the C2PA specification. It's not everything, but it's a lot. And it is able to run cross-platform. So it runs in browsers, on mobile, desktop, server environment, and embedded. So it enables all of those different types of environments to be able to work. And the workflows that we support are creation and signing of C2PA manifests, embedding those manifests in various forms of media. It also supports cloud and sidecar manifests, so you don't have to embed the content. And can parse and validate, running through the full suite of C2PA validation on the data that we have, reporting on that. And doing another thing you don't see as much, which is building the trees of this information. So if you have existing claims, you add it to other content and start building composite information that can build this whole tree of information within C2PA, and we support that. And you'll see more of that when Pia demonstrates after this. We support a wide range of media formats that is expanding. We started with JPEG and PNG. We're in the process of adding TIFF and DNG formats. We also support a wide variety of BMFF-based formats, including HEIC, MP4, MOV, and AVIF to some degree. The code is built in Rust currently, and there's a number of reasons that we use that: performance and memory safety and portability to a wide range of platforms, and that's proved very good. On top of the Rust SDK, we have two other open source projects. One is the JS SDK and one is the C2PA tool. The JS SDK supports development in JavaScript for in-browser applications and viewing content. It is a fully client-side. So what we've done is we've taken that the core SDK, wrapped it in WebAssembly, and it runs on the client, which is great because you can view video and other things that way. And it comes with a number of UI examples for how you should build stuff inside of the browser according to the C2PA standards. We also provide a command line tool, which is able to create claims and verify them simply by passing in JSON. So it does not require software development to use this. You can just take it off the shelf for desktop or server environments, and it builds in Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. So with that set of tools, we're able to support desktop applications, applications in the browser via the JS SDK, services, which have been largely built on C2PA tool, but can also directly call the SDK, and embedded environments. And examples of that are Photoshop, which Pia will show you, along with our Verify site, which is a website built on the JS SDK. Adobe's stock service is using the C2PA tool to sign every image coming out of the stock, which is thousands per day. And we also demonstrated recently Nikon cameras and the embedded environment, being able to use the same SDK there, as well as iOS applications that can be built that way. And these tools, as I said, are all available on open source today, opensource.contentauthenticity.org, on GitHub at ContentAuth, and we have a Discord channel allowing you to talk and communicate with us. And now I will pass it over to Pia, who's going to show you how this all looks.
Thank you, Gavin. Let me share my screen. Okay, great. So I'm Pia. I'm a white woman with brown hair, bangs, and glasses. I lead product design for the Content Authenticity Initiative, and I also co-chair the C2PA UX task force. And just to confirm, everyone can see that I have Photoshop already opened. Great. Okay, yes. So thank you. This is a photo of me and our product manager, Andrew Kabak, when we were at Adobe Max a couple of weeks ago. Interestingly, this photo is actually an example of the C2PA SDK running on the Nikon Z9 camera. We'll come back to what that actually looks like in a moment. But I'm going to take you through just how our implementation works for anyone using the latest version of Adobe Photoshop and is interested in securing their attribution and history data. So our tool in the Adobe ecosystem is called Content Credentials. And let's see, I gotta move this down. Okay, the way to enable content credentials for a given document is through our panel, but we can also right-click any open document to enable. And once you've turned this on, we have a visual indication that this is running. So from our panel, you can see all of the attribution information that we currently offer, and you can even preview it as it will appear once your content is exported. So you can see that my name appears as it is entered into my Adobe profile. There's also social media and Web3 accounts that can help tie me closer to my content and offer an identity reference for anyone viewing my work. And to manage my connected accounts, I simply go to, whoops, opened in the wrong place. This connected accounts website. Web3 is great for offering NFT creative attribution. We have a couple supported marketplaces that can visualize content credentials when added. Let me go ahead and actually quickly add my Behance profile, come back and refresh this, and you can see my social media links update in my content credentials. Additionally to identity information, I can decide to include my edits and activity, which is basically the actions I take on my open documents. These are high-level categories like you find in the latest version of the C2PA spec that give a general indication of what has happened to an image along the way. You can also see that anything I bring into this document will appear in the assets section. And again, because that Nikon photo already has attribution and history data, I have a clear indication of that. Let me go ahead and just close this for a moment to be able to embed an Adobe stock image I downloaded. And as Gavin just said, stock also runs the C2PA SDK. I'm gonna quickly remix these together so that it looks like this photo is appearing on this person's screen. And now when I preview my content credentials once more, you can see that I have both assets that have been imported, combined, and I've performed a size and position adjustment. So I want to actually export my image now. I'll go to export as, and we have a section for content credentials. To include my attribution data, I can select to publish to Content Credentials Cloud or attach to the file directly. Content Credentials Cloud is a service that we offer. It's a public persistent cloud storage for my attribution data. It helps keep my file size small, but it also provides resiliency if my data is ever stripped from my file. We have a way to recover it through our Verify website, which we'll look at momentarily. And then of course I can always select none if I don't want to include this data. So in this way, I'm always in control of when and how I want to share my attribution information. So let me go ahead and export. We'll call this remix. Okay. And we do have just a few ways to help manage the overall workflow. So in history and content credentials preferences, folks can set default settings for document and export settings. So that way they can always have this enabled for new and saved documents to continue their edit and activity history. Likewise, of course, we recommend publishing to the Content Credentials Cloud to ensure that data resiliency if your data is ever stripped. And now let's go ahead to actually view what we just created on Verify. Let me select the image we just made. So Verify is a way to inspect any content credentials. We can see an overview of the ingredients that make up that image. And we can even perform visual inspections of different versions to see what has changed over time. And if I dig in a little bit more to our ingredients, here's that Nikon photo. You can see it was signed by Nikon, captured back in October during Adobe Max. There's also additional EXIF information like camera and shot details. Likewise, if I look at the Adobe stock image, we can even see there's a link back to where this image lives on stock. So my audience can decide to license this photo if they're interested. And so this composite provides my viewers now with a complete record of verifiable origins of how it came to be. Last thing I want to show is how to recover your lost data. So I just took a screenshot and dropped it into Verify. And now, of course, you can see that I no longer have content credentials for my image, but because I just exported it to the Content Credentials Cloud, I can perform a search on the cloud to find possible matches based on a visual similarity search. And of course, here it is again. And so with Content Credentials Cloud, my data is always resilient and accessible. So this is actually our capture, edit, publish workflow to help establish provenance trails for creative works from the Content Authenticity Initiative. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you very much, Pia and Gavin, for, again, compressing so much information into such a short time. So I hope everyone was able to take that in. We will be publishing recordings of these sessions. So if anyone wants to go through and soak in the information a bit more slowly, where you can press pause, then feel free to go through that. But again, thank you to both of you, and to our friends from BBC and CBC and Microsoft, who also gave great presentations.